The alarm screams at 5:47 a.m. and your eyes open before your soul does. The room is still dark, that heavy kind of darkness that sits in the corners like it belongs there. Your hand reaches out, muscle memory, slapping at the nightstand until the sound dies. And then there it is. The silence. But not the peaceful kind. The kind that immediately fills with everything you didn't finish yesterday, everything waiting for you today, everything you're already behind on before your feet have even touched the floor. You lie there, staring at the ceiling. That same ceiling you've stared at 1,000 mornings. And you feel it. That weight in your chest. Not sharp pain. Not panic. Just heaviness. Like you're already tired for a day that hasn't started yet. Like you slept but never actually rested. Like you showed up to the battle before you even put your armor on. I know that feeling. I know that moment when the alarm goes off and your first thought isn't gratitude. It's not hope. It's not even a coherent prayer. It's just, Lord, I don't have it today. Your hand reaches for your phone before you even sit up. The screen lights up your face in the dark. 3 unread emails from your boss. A text from your mom you haven't responded to in 2 days. The calendar notification reminding you about that bill. That meeting. That thing you said you'd do and still haven't done. And just like that, before your feet touch the ground, you're already running. Already behind. Already exhausted. This is the part nobody posts on social media. This is the part nobody talks about at church when they ask how you're doing and you say, I'm blessed. This is the 5:47 a.m. reality where your faith feels thin and your to-do list feels thick, and somewhere between the two, your soul is just trying to breathe. But this morning, before your feet touch the floor, there is a different voice calling. Not the voice of your inbox. Not the voice of your anxiety. Not the voice that says get up, hurry, you're already late, you're not enough, you're falling behind. There's another voice. Quieter. Slower. The kind that doesn't shout because it doesn't need to. The kind that has been waiting for you to stop long enough to hear it. The first light is barely bleeding through the curtains. That thin, gray-blue light that hasn't decided if it's morning yet. And in that light, in that pause between alarm and action, there's an invitation. Not to do more. Not to try harder. Not to push through. An invitation to stop. To breathe. To let your soul catch up with your body before you drag both of them into another day they're not ready for. I've been reading this old psalm. Number 23. You've probably heard it. Maybe at a funeral. Maybe on a plaque somewhere. But this morning it hit different. It doesn't start with a command. It doesn't start with a to-do list. It starts with a statement so simple, so quiet, you could miss it if you're still running. The Lord is my shepherd. That's it. That's the whole foundation. Before the green pastures. Before the still waters. Before the restoration of the soul. Before any of that, there's just this, He is the shepherd. I am the sheep. And sheep don't wake up at 5:47 a.m. panicking about their to-do list. Sheep don't check their emails before their feet hit the grass. Sheep don't lie awake at 3 a.m. wondering if they're enough, if they're behind, if they're failing. Sheep just follow. They trust the shepherd to know where the green pasture is. They trust the shepherd to lead them to still water. They don't run ahead. They don't figure it out. They don't hustle for their provision. They just stay close to the one who knows the way. And I wonder how many mornings I've woken up and started running before I even knew which direction the shepherd was going. I wonder how much of my exhaustion isn't from the work itself, but from working without the leading. From trying to be the shepherd of my own life when I was never designed to carry that weight. There's this picture in Psalm 23 that I can't stop thinking about. He makes me lie down in green pastures. Did you catch that? He makes me. Not he suggests. Not he offers. Not he hopes I'll get around to it eventually. He makes me lie down. Because sometimes rest isn't a suggestion. It's a command. Sometimes the most spiritual thing you can do at 5:47 a.m. is not jump up and attack your day. It's pause. Breathe. Acknowledge that you are not the shepherd. You are the sheep. And the shepherd is already awake. He was awake before your alarm. He was awake while you were sleeping. He was awake while you were tossing and turning. And he's not panicked about your day. So here's the question that stopped me in my tracks this morning. The question I'm sitting with in this dark room while the light slowly grows. The question I want you to sit with too, before you get out of bed, before you open that laptop, before you answer that text, before you start running. Why does the shepherd want you to lie down when the whole world is telling you to get up and run? The world says your value is in your productivity. The shepherd says your value is in being his. The world says you're falling behind. The shepherd says you're exactly where he led you. The world says hustle. The shepherd says rest. The world says prove yourself. The shepherd says you're already loved. And maybe this morning, the most countercultural, counterintuitive, radical act of faith you can make is not to do more. It's to lie there for just a few more minutes. Not scrolling. Not planning. Not worrying. Just being. Being with the shepherd. Letting him be the shepherd. Letting yourself be the sheep. Trusting that the green pasture and the still water and the restoration of your soul, they're not things you have to go find. They're things he's already leading you to. If you'll just stop running long enough to follow. The light is stronger now. The room is starting to take shape. The day is coming whether you're ready or not. But this morning, before your feet touch the floor, there is a different voice calling. And it's not asking you to perform. It's not asking you to prove anything. It's not asking you to be enough. It's just asking you to follow. That voice calling you to follow, it wasn't loud. It didn't demand. It didn't shame you for the mornings you couldn't get out of bed, for the days you ran on fumes and called it faithfulness. It just waited. Like the shepherd waits for the sheep who's been wandering all night, not tapping his watch, not rolling his eyes, just watching the horizon with that quiet certainty that you'd come back. And here's what got me. Here's what I couldn't shake even after the room filled with light and the day started demanding its due. That voice? It wasn't saying do more. It wasn't saying try harder. It was saying something I'd forgotten how to hear. Rest. Not the kind you take when everything's finished, because let's be honest, when is everything ever finished? Not the kind you earn after you've proven you worked hard enough. Rest that's given. Rest that's a command, not a reward. And I heard it again. Not audibly. Not dramatically. But somewhere deeper than my eardrums, somewhere in that place where exhaustion and longing live side by side. Isaiah 40. Those words I'd read 100 times but never let myself believe were actually for me. Those who wait on the Lord shall renew their strength. Wait. That word. It stuck in my throat like a pill I couldn't swallow. Because waiting felt like failing. Waiting felt like falling behind while everyone else was getting ahead. There were deadlines. There were people depending on me. There were promises I'd made and expectations I'd set and 1,000 little threads I was holding together with sheer willpower and caffeine. Who was going to hold them if I let go? And that's when the real battle started. Not the battle to do more, I'd been fighting that one for years and losing badly. No, this was the battle to stop. To admit that maybe, just maybe, my exhaustion wasn't a badge of honor. Maybe my burnout wasn't proof of my dedication. Maybe I'd been measuring my faithfulness by how tired I was, and that measurement was never one God asked me to use. There's this story in Exodus. Chapter 33. Moses is leading a nation through a wilderness. Talk about pressure, talk about responsibility, talk about people depending on you. And he's terrified. He's exhausted. He's looking at the road ahead and seeing nothing but impossibility. And he says to God, essentially, I can't do this unless you go with me. And you know what God says back? Here's what stopped me cold in my tracks at that desk with the cold coffee and the shaking hands and the 18 unread emails. My presence will go with you, and I will give you rest. Read that again slowly. I had to sit there and let it sink past my defenses, past my, but I'm too busy for theology right now, past my, that sounds nice but you don't understand my situation. God didn't say, I'll remove the problems. He didn't say, I'll make the wilderness disappear. He didn't say, here's a shortcut so you can get out of this faster. He said, I'll be with you in it. And in my presence, in the middle of the chaos, in the middle of the pressure, in the middle of the very thing that's making you shake, I'll give you rest. Not rest after. Not rest if. Not rest when you've earned it. Rest. Now. In the middle. I looked down at my hands. They were still trembling, but something was shifting. Not the circumstances, the emails were still there, the deadlines were still real, the responsibilities hadn't magically vanished. But there was this presence. This presence I'd been too busy, too frantic, too driven to notice. It wasn't condemning. It wasn't disappointed. It wasn't standing there with a clipboard checking off whether I'd been productive enough to deserve love. It was just there. With me. In it. And here's the truth I'm still learning to hold on to, the truth that felt like oxygen to lungs that had been suffocating for years. The truth I want you to hear if you're sitting somewhere right now with your own cold coffee and your own shaking hands and your own mountain of things you can't possibly handle alone. God doesn't measure your faith by your endurance. He measures it by your willingness to let go. Not to abandon your responsibilities. Not to walk away from your calling. But to release the death grip. To uncurl your fingers from the illusion that everything depends on you. To stop believing the lie that your exhaustion is the same thing as your faithfulness. Mirror moment. This is where you see yourself. I know, because I saw myself. How many times have you worn your tiredness like a medal? How many times have you said, I'm just so busy, with a strange mixture of complaint and pride, as if your burnout proves your value? How many times have you believed, maybe never out loud, but in the quiet architecture of your choices, that stopping means failing, that resting means disappointing God? We've confused martyrdom with ministry. We've confused running on empty with running the race. We've taken I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me and twisted it into I have to do all things, and if I'm tired it means I'm not praying hard enough. Lies. All of it. Lies that feel like truth because we've rehearsed them so long. The shepherd doesn't drive the sheep until they collapse. The shepherd makes them lie down. The shepherd leads them to still water. The shepherd restores their souls, not after the journey, but in the middle of it. So here's the turning point. Here's the invitation that's still sitting in front of me, and maybe it's sitting in front of you too. It's not a call to quit. It's not permission to abandon what God has given you to do. It's an invitation to unclench your fists. To stop holding the world together with your own strength. To admit that you were never supposed to be the one keeping everything from falling apart. That's His job. Always has been. And the relief that comes with that admission, even the first tiny taste of it, is like water to someone who didn't realize they were dying of thirst. It's not the relief of escape. It's the relief of being allowed to be weak. The relief of being allowed to not have all the answers. The relief of being allowed to say, I can't, and hearing God respond, I know. I never asked you to. I just asked you to follow. There is one small act of faith you can do right now, right where you are sitting. That one small act of faith. Type this in the comments. Right now. Before you do anything else. Before you check the notifications. Before you start running through the to-do list in your head. Type these words. I receive God's peace. I rest in His presence, and I will walk in quiet strength today. Don't overthink it. Don't wait until you feel it. Don't convince yourself it's just words on a screen. This is your declaration. This is you drawing a line in the sand and telling the anxiety, the hurry, the pressure, the voice that says you're falling behind, telling all of it that it doesn't get to name you anymore. So here's what you're doing when you type those words. You're not performing. You're not earning anything. You're not doing a magic trick that makes all your problems disappear by lunchtime. What you're doing is this: you're making a choice. You're choosing to position yourself under the covering of God's peace instead of under the tyranny of your own striving. You're choosing to admit publicly, in this strange and holy space of an online community, that you cannot carry this alone. That you were never meant to. And there is something powerful about saying it out loud. Or typing it. Or declaring it with your fingers on a keyboard. Because faith is not just something you think. Faith is something you do. Faith is the step you take before you see the ground underneath your feet. This is not a promise that everything will be fixed by tonight. It's not a guarantee that the diagnosis will change or the relationship will heal or the bank account will suddenly multiply. That's not what this is. What this declaration actually means is that you are choosing to trust the one who holds it all, even when you can't see what He's doing. It's the quiet, trembling, honest prayer of someone who has run out of their own strength and is finally willing to admit it. And that, right there, is exactly where God meets us. Not in our perfection. Not in our impressive spiritual disciplines. Not in our ability to hold it all together. He meets us in our surrender. He meets us when we uncurl our fingers and let go. So if you're hesitating right now, if something in you is saying this feels silly, or I don't know if I believe enough, or what difference will typing words make, that's exactly the resistance you need to push through. That's the moment where faith becomes real. Not the feeling. The choice. Type it. Right now. Even with shaking hands. Even with a skeptical mind. Even with that little voice in the back of your head telling you nothing will change. I receive God's peace. I rest in His presence, and I will walk in quiet strength today. Now let me pray with you. And I'm not coming to this prayer as someone who has it all figured out. I'm coming as someone who has sat on the edge of the bed at 3 a.m. with no explanation for the weight in my chest. Someone who has stared at the ceiling and wondered if God was even listening. Someone who has whispered, "I can't do this anymore," into the darkness more times than I can count. So this prayer isn't polished. It's not from a place of strength. It's from a place of someone who has learned, is still learning, that the only way through is to admit we were never meant to walk alone. Father, we come to you now, and some of us are barely holding on. Some of us have been running so long we don't remember what rest feels like. Some of us have been carrying burdens you never asked us to carry, and we've confused our exhaustion with faithfulness. Forgive us for that. We ask for your peace. Not the peace the world gives, the shallow peace that depends on circumstances lining up perfectly. We ask for your peace. The peace that surpasses all understanding. The peace that doesn't make sense on paper but settles deep in the bones anyway. The peace that stays even when the storm is still raging. Pour it out now, Father. Over the mother who hasn't slept through the night in months. Over the husband who is quietly terrified about the finances. Over the student who feels like one more failure will break them. Over the single parent who is doing the work of two people and running on fumes. Over the person watching this who feels completely invisible, completely forgotten, completely alone. You see them. You see each one. And you are not distant from their pain. Restore what the years have worn down. Restore what the worry has eaten away. Restore what the striving has depleted. Breathe life back into the exhausted places. Renew the strength of those who have been running on empty for so long they've forgotten what full even feels like. And give us the courage to walk differently from this moment forward. Not faster. Not more frantically. But with a quiet strength that comes from knowing we are not the ones holding the world together. That's your job. And you're very good at it. Teach us to move through this day without the panic. Without the rush. Without the constant looking over our shoulders at everything we're afraid might fall apart. Teach us to trust that you are working even when we can't see it. That you are providing even when the numbers don't add up. That you are making a way even when every door looks closed. We don't need to understand it all. We just need to follow. So we choose that today. Right now. In this moment. We choose to follow instead of striving. We choose to rest instead of racing. We choose to trust instead of trying to control everything that was never ours to control. In the name of Jesus, who himself said, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," in his name we receive that rest now. Amen. Here's the memorable truth I want you to carry with you today. Write it down if you need to. Put it somewhere you'll see it. Let it be the thing that anchors you when the world starts pulling you back into the chaos. Real peace is not the absence of the storm. Real peace is the presence of the one who can command the storm to be still. The waves may still crash. The wind may still howl. The circumstances may not change overnight. But you are not in this boat alone. And the one who is in the boat with you has authority over everything that is trying to sink you. So here's your mirror moment for the road ahead. Tomorrow morning, or maybe even later today, you're going to face the same list. The same responsibilities. The same people who need things from you. The same deadlines. The same pressure.